Am I the a-hole for refusing to take my ex back after he realized my worth? I'm 23, and my ex, Daniel, is 25. We were together for nearly 3 years. When we first started dating, it was that kind of love you see in movies, the us against the world type. I was all in. I didn't just love him. I supported him in every possible sense of the word. When we met, he was in a really rough spot professionally. He was jumping from one dead-end job to another, constantly stressed about rent, and feeling like he was failing at life. I stepped up. I didn't even think twice about it. I helped him financially when his bank account hit zero. I listened to him vent for hours every night, and eventually, I used a personal connection to help him land the stable, high-paying corporate job he is now. I felt like his success was our success. I thought we were a team building a foundation for a life together. But the moment he got comfortable in that new life, things shifted. It wasn't overnight, but it was a slow, painful withdrawal. The guy who used to text me throughout the day suddenly became too busy to even acknowledge my messages. When he came home, he'd go straight to his computer or his phone. If I tried to plan a date or even just ask for 30 minutes of quality time, he'd roll his eyes like I was asking for a kidney. I would sit him down and say I felt like we were drifting, that I felt like I was the only one trying. He would look at me with this look of pure annoyance and say I was overthinking things, that I was being too emotional or too needy. He made me feel like the problem was my perception of reality, not his actual behavior. I took on even more of the emotional labor, thinking if I just made his life easier, he'd find his way back to me. I remember one specific day, about 3 months before the breakup. I had finished a massive project at work, something I'd been stressed about for weeks. I came home and wanted to celebrate, maybe just grab a pizza and watch a movie. I told him about it, and he didn't even look up from his phone. He just said, "Cool. Can you make sure the laundry is done? I need my blue shirt for tomorrow." I was a ghost in my own apartment. I was the person who did the laundry, the person who made sure the bills were paid, the person who edited his emails when he was worried about his boss. I wasn't a partner. I was a concierge. And every time I tried to ask for more, he'd use that too emotional line. It became a wall he built between us. If I showed any emotion, I was crazy. If I stayed quiet, everything was fine. Then came the day he ended it. It was so casual, it was chilling. No big fight, no warning. He sat there and told me he needed to find himself and that he felt like he was missing out on life by being tied down. He did it in the hallway while I was holding a bag of groceries. He didn't even have the decency to sit me down. He just said he wasn't feeling it anymore and he needed space to see what else was out there. He watched me cry while I was still holding the milk and eggs, and he didn't even offer to help me put them away. He just walked into the bedroom to start packing a bag. I felt like the floor had been pulled out from under me. Everything I had invested, the money, the time, the emotional energy, it all felt like it meant nothing to him. I was devastated, but I had enough pride left not to beg. I let him go. After that, I didn't call him. I didn't text him. I didn't even check his socials. I went completely ghost. I spent months and a days just trying to survive the day. I reconnected with my friends, got back into my old hobbies, and slowly, the fog started to lift. I realized I wasn't the needy, overthinking person he made me out to be. I was just a woman who had been drained by someone who took everything and gave back nothing. By month 5, I was actually doing well. I was happy. My routine was solid. I felt lighter. And then, like clockwork, the text came, "Can we talk? I've made a huge mistake." From an unknown number. I didn't answer for 2 days. When I finally agreed to meet him at a public park, he looked tired. He started this long explanation about how the last few months had been eye-opening. He sat there and told me I was the best thing that ever happened to him. He said he took me for granted and that he finally realized my worth. He wanted a second chance. He promised he had changed. I sat there listening to him, and it was the strangest feeling. For 3 years, I would have given anything to hear those words. But as he spoke, I felt nothing. No spark, no relief, just a profound sense of exhaustion. I realized he wasn't crying because he missed me. He was crying because his plan B failed, and he realized that life is much harder without someone around to carry his weight for him. I told him, "Daniel, I've moved on. I don't want this. I'm not that person anymore, and you aren't the person I thought you were." He flipped. The remorseful act disappeared, and he got angry. He called me cold. He said I was being unforgiving and cruel because I had once claimed to love him so much. He tried to weaponize my own past feelings against me, telling me that if I ever truly loved him, I'd be willing to work through this mistake. Since that meeting, the pressure from our mutual friends has been nonstop. We have this group chat that's existed since we were all in college, and it's turned into a battlefield. A friend I'll call Sarah has been texting me daily. She says Daniel is clearly miserable and has learned his lesson. She thinks I'm throwing away 3 years over a few months of him being stupid. Then there's Mark, Daniel's best friend, who messaged me saying Daniel was a mess after he left me, and that I shouldn't be the person who kicks someone when they're down. This makes me so angry. Where was the don't kick her while she's down energy when Daniel left me? Nobody cared about my worth then. Nobody was telling Daniel he was being cold or cruel when he was gaslighting me for months. It feels like there's this double standard where I'm expected to be an endless well of forgiveness, while he's allowed to leave whenever he's bored and come back whenever he's lonely. I actually ran into Daniel again, not by choice though. I was at a local coffee shop I always go to on Saturdays, and he showed up. I'm almost certain Sarah told him I'd be there. He didn't come over and cause a scene, but he sat 3 tables away and just stared at me. He had this puppy dog look on his face, waiting for me to acknowledge him. I just kept reading my book and drinking my coffee. When I got up to leave, he followed me out. He asked if I was really not even going to talk to him. I turned around and told him we already talked, that I told him where I stand and to please stop following me. He told me I was being so different and asked what happened to the kind person I used to be. That was the moment I realized he thinks kind means compliant. He thinks kind means accepting whatever treatment he gives me because I'm a good person. I told him I am still kind. I'm being kind to myself by not letting him back in to hurt me again. He started posting these cryptic, sad status updates on social media. Photos of places we used to go to with captions like, "You don't know what you have until it's gone." Our mutual friends are liking them and sending me screenshots, which feels like they're trying to bully me back into the relationship. I think back to our first year, when he lost his job and I told him not to worry because I had us covered. He was so grateful then. But once he got that new job I helped him get, that gratitude turned into resentment. He started telling stories to his new coworkers about how he hustled to get his position, never mentioning my help or the referral. When I tell him that was hurtful, he'd use the too emotional line. That was the blueprint for everything. Anytime I had a feeling that didn't align with his ego, it was a problem with my personality. So when he says he's changed, I don't believe him. He's the same guy who dismissed my reality for years. The only difference is that now he's the one who's too emotional and needy. He's doing exactly what he used to punish me for doing. He's the one overthinking our interactions. He's the one crying. He's the one begging for attention. If I took him back, what would the next year look like? It would be a honeymoon phase for a month, and then the old patterns would return. He'd start being too busy again. He'd start telling me I'm overthinking again. I don't want to spend my life looking over my shoulder, wondering if my partner is going to leave the moment he gets bored. I had a long talk with my sister about this last night. She's the only one who seems to have my back. She reminded me of the month after the breakup, when I would just sit on the floor of my room because I didn't have the energy to get into bed. He doesn't get to press undo just because he's ready now. I can forgive him for being a selfish person, but I don't have to trust him again. I don't have to risk my peace for his comfort. Is it unforgiving to say that some things shouldn't be forgiven? Or at least, that forgiveness doesn't mean giving someone their old spot back? I don't hate him. I just don't want him. He keeps sending me these long texts about our future and even mention marriage, something he refused to talk about for 3 years. It feels so manipulative, like he's dangling the things he knows I wanted back then just to see if I'll bite. I'm going to block him again on this number tonight, and I might have to block Sarah and Mark, too. It hurts to lose friends, but they care more about Daniel's sadness than my happiness. Daniel didn't realize my worth. He realized his life is inconvenient without me. He realized that laundry doesn't do itself, that rent is cheaper. When split, I'm not a lesson for him to learn. I'm a human being. I'm never going back. So, am I the a-hole? Update. I didn't expect to be back with an update this soon, but apparently life decided the universe wasn't done humiliating my ex yet, and now that the actual truth has come out, I feel weirdly vindicated in a way that's equal parts satisfying and disgusting. When I made my original post, I already knew Daniel's hole. I made a mistake. I finally realized your worth speech was nonsense. I knew in my bones that people do not suddenly transform into enlightened romantics because they spent a few lonely weeks without a girlfriend doing their laundry. I knew there had to be more to it. He was too desperate, too frantic, too rehearsed in the way he kept trying to frame his return like some grand emotional awakening. It never felt genuine. It felt like a man reading from a script he hoped would get him back into comfortable housing. Well, now I know why. A mutual friend reached out to me 2 nights ago and basically said, "You deserve to know what really happened." Turns out Daniel did not leave me because he needed to find himself. He did not leave because he was missing out on life. He did not leave because our relationship had somehow become stale, or because I was supposedly too emotional, too needy, too whatever else he liked to call me whenever he wanted me to stop questioning his behavior. He left because of the other woman. And not in the way I originally thought. She was never some sweet coworker he innocently fell for after our relationship had naturally run its course. She was not a new love connection. She was not some serious romantic prospect that simply worked out better on paper. She was a married woman. Married. With children. Apparently the entire thing was an affair, and from what I've been told, she never had any intention of actually leaving her husband for him. Daniel was not her soulmate. He was not her secret great love. He was entertainment, a distraction, a fling she used for excitement while maintaining her real life at home. He blew up our entire relationship because he thought he was trading up for some forbidden, passionate romance, and in reality, he was just the side piece in another woman's midlife crisis. That alone would have been enough to make me laugh. But it gets worse. From what I was told, Daniel genuinely believed she was going to leave her husband. He thought the reason she kept things secret was because she needed time. He apparently bought every cliché in the cheater handbook. She fed him just enough attention to keep him invested, kept promising vague future plans, and let him believe they were building towards something real. Then her husband found out. Or at least got suspicious enough that things blew up at home. And what did she do? She chose her family. Immediately. Cut Daniel off, told him she was fixing her marriage, blocked him, and reportedly told him that what they had was never meant to be serious. So let me summarize the timeline for everyone who is calling me cold. This man emotionally checked out of our relationship, gaslit me for months, likely cheated on me with a married woman, dumped me with some fake self-discovery speech to pursue his fantasy affair openly, got discarded the second reality hit, and then came crawling back to me pretending he had undergone some spiritual awakening. No. Absolutely not. The part that makes me angriest is not even the cheating anymore. It's the calculated dishonesty of how he tried to rewrite history. He sat across from me and looked me in the eyes while pretending his return was about love. He wanted me to believe this was some tragic story of a man who lost the woman who mattered most because he was foolish and immature. He wanted to position himself as someone humbled by regret. That was never true. He came back because his affair partner threw him away. That's it. He did not choose me. He got rejected and came looking for the nearest emotional life raft. Apparently several of our mutual friends knew at least pieces of this before I did, which has created an entirely separate issue because now I'm reevaluating a lot of friendships. Some of the same people pressuring me to hear him out and give him grace were fully aware that the woman he left me for was married and that the whole relationship imploded because she dumped him to save her marriage. They knew and still thought I should take him back. I cannot even explain the level of disrespect that feels like. One of them admitted they didn't tell me because they didn't want to hurt me more after the breakup. What that really means is they wanted to protect Daniel from looking worse than he already did. They wanted to preserve the lie that he simply made a romantic mistake instead of acknowledging what actually happened, which is that he torched a 3-year relationship to be another woman's dirty secret. Sarah, who was one of the loudest voices telling me I was being cruel, actually tried to defend him after the truth came out by saying that people do stupid things when they think they're in love. No. Adults make choices. Selfish adults make selfish choices. He didn't accidentally fall into an affair. He made decision after decision after decision that led him there. He chose to flirt with a married woman. He chose to entertain that attention. He chose to lie to me while building whatever emotional or physical affair they had behind my back. He chose to leave instead of being honest. He chose to feed me a manipulative story about self-discovery rather than admit he was leaving me for someone else. Then he chose to lie again when he came back. Every single part of this was deliberate. And the funniest part of all is that now he's apparently furious that people know the truth. He has been trying to do damage control all over our social circle, telling people it's not that simple and that his relationship with the married woman was complicated. As if complexity somehow changes morality. It doesn't. You slept with a married woman. You blew up your own life over it. She picked her husband. Now you're embarrassed. That is not complexity. That is consequences. He tried contacting me again after I learned the truth. This time from another new number, because apparently blocking him is now his hobby. I answered because I knew exactly what it was going to be, and honestly, part of me wanted to hear what excuse he'd invent. He immediately launched into damage control. Said it wasn't what it looked like. Said their marriage was basically over when they got involved. Said she led him on and made him believe they had a future. Said he had been manipulated. And I just sat there listening to this grown man describe himself like he was some innocent teenage victim seduced by an evil temptress instead of an adult who knowingly pursued a married woman. Then came the part that truly made me laugh. He said the reason he didn't tell me the truth before was because he didn't want me to think less of him. As if there were still lower to go. He then tried to pivot into how this somehow proves his feelings for me are real because if he didn't love me, he wouldn't have come back. That sentence alone nearly gave me an aneurysm. You came back because your affair partner chose her husband over you. You did not return out of love. You returned because you were left standing alone after discovering you were never as important to her as she was to you. That is not romance. That is humiliation. I told him exactly that. I told him he wasn't standing at my door because he had discovered my value. He was standing there because another woman reminded him of his. She showed him that he was disposable, and now he wanted to crawl back to the person who once treated him like he mattered. He got angry fast. The fake remorse vanished almost instantly. The crying, apologetic version of him disappeared, and the real Daniel showed back up. He accused me of enjoying his suffering. He said I was being vindictive. He said I was acting superior because one bad choice ruined his life. One bad choice. No. A sustained affair is not one bad choice. Leaving your long-term partner under false pretenses is not one bad choice. Manipulating that partner into doubting their sanity while you emotionally abandon them is not one bad choice. Trying to crawl back under false pretenses after your affair implodes is not one bad choice. It is a pattern of selfishness, a pattern of entitlement, a pattern of using people until they no longer serve your needs. I told him if he wanted sympathy, he should go ask the married woman who treated him like a toy. That ended the conversation. He started blowing up my phone afterward from various numbers until I blocked every single one. And yes, before anyone asks, I have also started cutting off the friends who kept pressuring me to reconcile with him. Not all of them, some genuinely didn't know the full truth, but the ones who did know and still tried to guilt me can go with him. Because I've realized something pretty ugly through all this. A lot of people are deeply uncomfortable when a woman refuses to be the bigger person. They were fine when I was heartbroken. They were fine when I was humiliated. They were fine when I quietly rebuilt my life. But the second I refused to hand a man forgiveness on demand because he was sad, suddenly I became cold. Funny how that works. Apparently, I was supposed to absorb betrayal gracefully, applaud his growth, and reward him for finally understanding basic consequences. No. He can sit with the discomfort. He can learn from it. He can become a better person for someone else if he actually changes. But he will not use me as his redemption arc. The best part of all this, honestly, is how little I feel now. Months ago, this would have shattered me. Finding out the full truth would have sent me spiraling, wondering how long he had been lying, whether there were signs I missed, whether I was somehow not enough. Now, I mostly feel disgusted that I ever doubted myself, because everything I sensed was real. Every moment, he made me feel paranoid for noticing distance. Every time he told me I was insecure for questioning his closeness with her. Every accusation that I was overthinking. That was all gaslighting. I was not crazy. I was not needy. I was not imagining things. My instincts were right the entire time. There is something deeply healing in having that confirmed. It doesn't erase what happened, but it does close the loop. It reminds me that the version of myself he tried to create in my head, the irrational, clingy girlfriend who imagined problems where there were none, never existed. That was a fiction he needed me to believe, so he could keep doing what he wanted without accountability. I'm done carrying shame for someone else's betrayal. As for Daniel, I genuinely do not care what happens next. He can go back to chasing unavailable women. He can write sad captions on social media. He can tell people I'm heartless. He can spend the next 5 years convincing himself he was the victim in all this. It has nothing to do with me anymore. He made his choices. He bet on the wrong woman. He lost. And now he can return to where he came from, far away from me. The weirdest part of this whole ordeal is that his downfall has made me even more certain that I was never the problem. For so long after the breakup, even when I knew logically he treated me badly, there was still that small wounded part of me wondering if maybe I had lacked something. Maybe if I'd been prettier, cooler, less emotional, more ambitious, more mysterious, maybe he wouldn't have gotten bored. But seeing the kind of chaos he willingly created just to chase validation from a woman who never intended to choose him has erased that doubt completely. He did not leave because I lacked something. He left because he is the type of person who will destroy stability in pursuit of ego. That is not a reflection of my worth. That is a reflection of his character. So no, for anyone wondering, I am not taking him back. Not now. Not ever. He had his chance. He traded it for fantasy. That fantasy discarded him. And I refuse to be the consolation prize for a man who confused betrayal with adventure. If this whole thing has taught me anything, it's that closure doesn't always come from apologies. Sometimes closure comes from seeing exactly who someone is when the mask slips all the way off. And his mask is gone. Completely. So that's the update. The truth came out. He wasn't some lost man finding himself. He was another woman's side piece who got played. And when karma hit him, He came crawling back to the woman he thought would always be waiting. He was wrong. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Daily Tales Update.